Apple and the iPhone. Apple is a major international company that makes different electronic devices, including the cell phone and the computer. IBM used to be the leader in the technology world, but their computer systems used to be as big as an entire room. Now Apple has made that power to be able to fit into your hand. Some of Apple's products are the iMac, iPod, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and the HomePod. Apple in the early years. Apple was founded by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne in April 1976 to make and sell Wozniak's Apple I personal computer. The company that the three gentlemen had made was named Apple Computer Inc. in January 1977. Sales of its computer, including Apple II, that was made after the Apple I computer, saw momentum and growth for the company. Apple really went public in 1980. The high price of its products and limited software caused problems, as did power struggles between executives at the company. Steve Jobs resigned from Apple and created his own company named Next in 1983. More executive job shuffles happened at Apple until CEO of Apple, Gil Amelio, in 1997 decided to buy Next to bring back Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had regained position as CEO in 1997 once he was brought back from Next. Apple started to open retail stores once Steve Jobs had came back and taken the position of CEO. In January 2007, Jobs announced that Apple Computer Inc. would be renamed to Apple Inc. because they were not just making computers anymore. 2 months later, in August 2011, Jobs resigned as CEO due to health complications, and Tim Cook became the new CEO of Apple Inc. 2 months later, Steve Jobs had died, marking the end of an era for the company. Apple now. Apple, the first major product announcement by Apple following Jobs' passing occurred on January 19th, 2012, when Apple's Phil Schiller introduced iBooks for iOS in New York City, New York. Jobs had stated in his biography that he wanted to reinvent the textbook industry and education. On January 16th, Apple has recorded over 1 billion active devices, including the iPhone, Apple Home, Apple Home Mini, iPod, iMac, and iPad. Project Purple. Project Purple. Project Purple, the iPhone was first called codename Purple. Barely anyone at Apple knew about Project Purple. It was sealed behind a metal door that was called the Purple Dorm, so that no one at Apple would be able to see what was going on and how it was made. Speaking of how the iPhone was made, it's as American as a can of Coke or a hamburger. A lot goes into making an iPhone. Gorilla Glass, an A6 chip, circuit boards, the accelerator meter, and various other components, transistors, wires, and connectors. And then there is the software on top of that. When you buy an iPhone, you are buying a little bit from LG, Samsung, Sharp, and Myriad, which are not American. Apple relies on manufacturers in China to assemble its iPhones. Those manufacturers are usually Foxconn and Pegatron, which are both manufacturers based in China. Apple hires 700,000 foreign workers, 43,000 workers in the U.S. states, 20,000 U.S. workers outside of the states. 70,000 iPhones were sold in 2011, and all of them were not even made in America. Apple has generated 598,000 U.S. held jobs. 50,250 were Apple direct employees. 257,000 were other industrial jobs dependent on Apple, and 291,000 were iOS communities. Many iPhone components require rare earth minerals. The rare earth minerals mostly come from China, and what needs the rare earth minerals are the color screen, glass polishing, speakers, vibration unit, and phone circuitry. The LCD panels, chipset, batteries, DRAM, and flash memory are made in Korea and Taiwan, but 85% of the iPhones are totally assembled in China. The iPhone now. The iPhone is one of the most iconic devices, yet it isn't even that old. Something that the iPhone provides is multi-touch, which tracks multiple fingerprints at one time, which means that you can pinch zoom. Steve Jobs said that multi-touch was made by Apple, but it wasn't. The iPhone has many great qualities in it, like the sleek black design or the touch screen, but it knows everything about us, and we know very little about it. Multi-touch was really invented many times, once in the 1960s by England's Royal Radar Establishment, and in the 1970s by CERN. Apple had pioneered multi-touch from a man named Wayne Westerman, who was a brilliant engineering PhD at the University of Delaware. Apple had taken over Wayne Westerman's company, which he named Fingerworks, in 2005. In 2007, Apple reinvented the phone. The original iPhone had multi-touch proximity sensor, which was able to detect nearby objects without physical contact, a light sensor, and accelerator meter, which measures acceleration force. The iPhone 3G had 3G connectivity, the App Store, and geotagging, which helps you find specific locations with your phone. The iPhone 3GS provided video recording, voice control, and the digital compass. The iPhone 4 had a Retina display to make the screen more clear, and the front-facing camera, and a gyroscope to tell what position your phone is at when you are holding it. The iPhone 4S is the first phone with what we all know as Siri. It also had 1080 pre-recording and a SIM card slot. The iPhone 5 has LTE connection and a lighting connector. The iPhone 5C is just like the iPhone 5, but with different colors. The colors that it has are white, pink, yellow, green, and blue. The iPhone 5S had the first Touch ID, dual flash, motion coprocessor, and slow motion videotaping. iPhone 6 and 6 Plus had Retina HD display. It also has 3D Touch and 7K aluminum series. The 6 Plus had an optical image stabilization. The iPhone SE had all the components as the 6s did. It was just smaller than the 6s. The iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are water resistant, Captivate home button, Topic engine, and stereo audio. The iPhone X has the sharpest display ever on an iPhone, facial recognition, wireless charging, and 12 megapixel wide angle lens camera. The iPhone 9 or X2 or whatever Apple ends up calling the 2018 iPhone is expected to come into Apple stores next fall.